Imagine for a second that you decide you want to take up golf.
Oh, okay.
And like, not just as a weekend hobby, right?
Hmm.
You want to be incredible at it. You want to play like a pro.
Yeah.
So you go out and you drop, I don't know, $5,000 on the absolute top-of-the-line professional-grade golf clubs.
Oh, yeah. The custom grips, the perfect weighting, all of it.
Exactly. We're talking the exact same titanium drivers that the Masters are using on tour. So you confidently walk onto the course, you step up to the first tee, line up your shot, take this massive swing, and well, you send the ball flying violently off to the right, straight into a water hazard.
Just right into the pond.
Right into the pond. You just stand there watching the ripples. Now, my question is, are you going to turn around and blame those $5,000 clubs?
I mean, you would look pretty foolish if you did. Those clubs are perfectly engineered pieces of equipment, you know? They do exactly what they designed to do.
Right.
The harsh reality in that moment is simply that, well, the person swinging them has absolutely no idea what they're doing.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today, our mission is to unpack a really brutal, kind of undeniable truth from the financial world. Specifically, we're looking at the high-stakes arena of retail day trading.
It's a fascinating area.
It really is, and we've been looking into some staggering data. The core finding is basically this. Nearly 90% of retail traders lose money month after month until they just eventually quit entirely.
90%, that's just massive.
Right. But the truly shocking part isn't even that failure rate, it's the reason behind it.
Yeah.
They aren't losing because their technical strategies are flawed. They're losing because their psychology is, frankly, incredibly weak.
Yeah, and it is a profound shift in perspective when you really dig into it. I mean, think about the sheer volume of people who sit down at their computer desks every single morning.
Armed to the teeth.
Exactly. They boot up their charting software, and they've spent thousands of dollars on, expensive courses, premium mentorships, these incredibly complex technical indicators.
They believe they bought the perfect golf clubs.
Exactly. They sit there with supreme confidence, just fully believing they have the perfect battle plan. But the moment real money is actually on the line,
When it stops being theory.
right, the moment that abstract theory becomes a tangible, actual financial risk, all that carefully rehearsed logic completely leaves the room. I mean, people tend to believe the market is actively working against them.
Right.
But the enemy was never the market. The market isn't out there actively defeating your specific indicators or hunting your specific account.
It doesn't care.
It doesn't. It is simply a neutral environment that just exposes your deepest emotional flaws.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I think anyone who has ever tried to learn a new skill, especially a high-stakes one where there's real consequence, can relate to this feeling of hitting a wall.
Absolutely.
Since these traders don't realize that their own mind is the problem, they do what human beings naturally do to protect their ego, right? They look outward for a fix.
They assume the equipment must be broken.
Yeah. And this leads to a trap that our sources call the vicious cycle of strategy hopping.
Oh, it is the ultimate psychological illusion of control. A beginner starts trading, they, inevitably take a few losses, and their immediate thought is rarely, oh, I was undisciplined.
No, nobody wants to admit that.
Right. That thought is, I just haven't found the perfect strategy yet. My tool is wrong. Once I find the holy grail of setups, I'll be consistently profitable. So they abandon ship and they just look for the next shiny object.
And the data details this exact cycle. It's almost comical how predictable the journey actually is. Like one week, a trader is entirely obsessed with something called the smart money concept.
Oh, sure.
They are convinced that tracking the hidden footprints of megabanks is like the ultimate secret. Then they lose a few trades. So the next week, they abandon it completely for IC.
Inner circle trader strategies, yeah.
Right. Believing that mimicking specific institutional algorithms is the real answer. Then, when that inevitably results in a loss, they pivot to supply and demand trading, then breakout strategies, waiting for a price to smash through a ceiling.
And that's scalping.
Yes, scalping. Trying to grab tiny profits in a matter of seconds. Then they just load their charts up with 50 different linking indicators.
Just a completely chaotic scream.
Yeah, and finally, when all else fails, and they are just totally exhausted, they hand their money over to AI trading bots, hoping a machine can just do the work for them.
They are constantly changing their weapons, completely ignoring the fact that the soldier wielding the weapon is, well, mentally fragile. The overarching theme here is definitive. A highly profitable strategy placed in the hands of an undisciplined trader instantly becomes a losing strategy.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this slightly.
Yeah.
Because It sounds like you're saying this strategy doesn't matter at all. Isn't a robust, proven strategy actually necessary? I
Well,
mean, you can't really just mindset your way to wealth with a genuinely terrible plan, right?
right.
Going back to my analogy, if my golf club is actually just a crooked tree branch I found in the woods, no amount of Zen mental discipline is going to get me to the PGA Tour.
No, no, that is a crucial distinction to make. And what's fascinating here is how we have to separate the tool from the execution. A strategy absolutely gives you a mathematical edge in the market.
Okay.
It provides the framework for probability. But your psychology determines whether you can consistently apply that edge over time. Trading, at its absolute core, is simply decision-making under uncertainty.
And humans hate uncertainty.
We despise it. Neurologically speaking, there is nothing that triggers the human fear response quite like uncertainty.
So the strategy tells you what you should do in a sterile vacuum, but your psychology dictates what you actually do when your heart rate spikes and the pressure is on.
Exactly. Let's look at the specific mechanisms of how psychology overrides rules in real time. Let's say your carefully researched strategy dictates, only risk 1% of your account balance on any single trade.
That's the logical rule.
Right. But you take a loss. Instantly, your psychology screams, double the lot size.
Yeah.
Buy twice as much volume on the next trade so we can recover that lost money immediately.
Or your strategy clearly dictates the use of a stop loss, like an automatic eject button. It says if the price drops to this specific number, take the small loss and exit the trade to protect the rest of your capital.
A very sensible rule.
Right, but as the price gets closer and closer to that line, your psychology steps in and whispers, just move the stop loss down a little bit more. Give it some breathing room. I know the market is going to bounce back.
And in that exact moment, the strategy didn't fail. The trader failed the strategy. Strategy writes the rules of engagement, but human emotion breaks them. And, broken rules inevitably create broken bank accounts.
Which leads us perfectly into identifying what exactly is happening in our brains when we break those rules. If uncertainty triggers fear, what does that psychological sabotage look like in real time?
Yeah, let's break down.
Our sources detail 4 specific emotional enemies. They call them the silent killers of the mind. And the first one is the fear of losing.
Right, and this is a primal evolutionary response. The moment real, hard-earned money is at risk, the human brain literally shifts from the prefrontal cortex, which is the area responsible for objective logical analysis,
Right.
straight into the amygdala. You enter survival mode, you stop looking at the chart as neutral mathematical data, and you start looking at those red candles as a literal physical threat to your well-being.
The internal monologue just becomes a relentless loop of anxiety, right?
Mhm.
What if this trade hits my stop loss? What if I lose again? I can't afford another red day.
And that biological fear response makes you actively sabotage your own mathematical probability. Because you are so terrified of losing, you end up closing winning trades way too early just to secure a tiny profit.
Oh, wow.
Or worse, you stare at a perfectly valid setup that meets absolutely every single criteria of your strategy and you just freeze. You skip it entirely because you are paralyzed by the memory of yesterday's loss.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. That's fear. But the second silent killer swings the pendulum entirely in the opposite direction: greed. And what makes greed particularly dangerous is how perfectly it disguises itself as confidence.
Oh, absolutely. It's a massive influx of dopamine. Imagine a trader has one really fantastic winning trade. They hit a home run, the dopamine floods their system, and suddenly they feel completely invincible.
Like they're a genius.
Exactly. They feel like they have personally cracked the code of the universe.
And what happens next is just so destructive. Because they feel invincible, they artificially increase their lot size, taking on way more risk than their account can handle.
Yeah.
They start over-trading, they force entries into the market when there isn't actually a valid setup, purely to chase that biochemical high again. They aren't following a mathematical system anymore, they are just seeking a thrill.
Which almost always leads to a massive, devastating loss. And that brings us to the third killer, which is widely described as one of the deadliest diseases a trader can catch: revenge trading.
Revenge trading is fascinating because it happens the moment after a painful loss, and it proves that a lost trade doesn't just hurt your wallet, it hurts your ego.
It really does.
It feels like a personal insult from the universe.
And when that happens, the trader no longer cares about technical analysis. They don't care about the chart. They want immediate recovery. They want to force the market to give them their money back right now.
which never works.
Never. So they jump right back into a trade, abandoning all patience, waiting for zero confirmation, and breaking all their rules. They are no longer trading the market. They are blindly swinging at their own wounded pride.
It makes me think of trying to win a fist fight with a brick wall. You're angry, you feel wronged, so you punch the wall as hard as you can. But the wall doesn't feel it. You just end up with bloody knuckles.
That's a great analogy.
The market is a brick wall. It is completely indifferent to your ego, and it punishes arrogance mercilessly.
The market doesn't care that you had a bad morning, And that lack of control feeds directly into the fourth killer: impatience. The neurological reality is that most struggling traders are simply addicted to action.
We live in a highly stimulated, dopamine-driven culture.
Exactly, and people literally cannot tolerate boredom.
There's a great contrast in the source material that highlights this. A truly disciplined, professional trader will sit at their desk and watch a screen for 4 solid hours, doing absolutely nothing.
Just waiting.
Just waiting for one single perfect setup that perfectly matches their statistical edge. But a losing trader, in that exact same 4-hour window, they will take 9 completely useless random trades.
Oh, wait.
Not because the strategy told them to, but simply because they need the stimulation of being in a trade.
They feel that if they aren't actively clicking buy or sell, they aren't working. It's like pulling the lever on a slot machine just to see the lights spin. But in an environment driven by probability, sometimes the most highly profitable action you can take is keeping your hands off the keyboard.
Doing nothing.
Psychologically weak traders cannot handle the silence of the market.
So we have fear, greed, revenge, and impatience. And when you look at these 4 silent killers, you realize they aren't being generated by the blinking red and green lights on a computer screen. They are deeply ingrained human neuroses. The screen is merely reflecting them back at the trader.
If you connect this to the bigger picture, this is perhaps the most profound realization a person can have in this field. And unfortunately, it usually only clicks after they have lost thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
The financial market is not just a place to buy and sell assets. It is a perfectly objective mirror.
A mirror that reflects your patience, your discipline, your insecurities, and your desperation.
Exactly. The chart on your screen does not create the emotion of impatience. It simply reveals that you are, at your core, an impatient person. If you are impulsive in traffic, if you're impulsive in conversations, you are going to be impulsive when you trade.
That is so true.
If you are financially desperate, the market will literally smell that desperation in your frantic decision-making and destroy your account. This business pays the emotionally stable and extracts wealth from the emotionally needy.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Even if you have absolutely zero interest in ever day trading stocks or foreign exchange, the underlying psychological truth here applies to almost any high-stakes scenario in your life.
Absolutely.
How often do our professional failures or even our personal relationship struggles simply reflect our own internal emotional instability? We constantly blame the external system. We blame the job, the boss, the partner, the economy, when the reality is that the system is just exposing our own unchecked fear, ego, or impatience.
It requires a radical, uncomfortable level of self-accountability. You have to stop blaming the strategy, stop blaming the external environment, and look in the mirror and admit, I am the problem.
Which brings us to the crucial pivot. Once a person actually accepts this harsh truth, that they are suffering from psychological instability rather than a strategy deficiency, how do they actually go about fixing it?
Well, they have to fundamentally rewire how their brain views probability and risk. They need to study the mindset of the incredibly small percentage of traders who are actually consistently profitable.
The 10%.
Right, because those successful individuals are not magicians. They don't have a crystal ball that tells them what the market will do next. They simply prioritize their execution process over their immediate emotions. They adhere to their rules because they mathematically understand that rules are inherently stronger than fleeting feelings.
It's often said that professional traders protect their capital the way soldiers protect their ammunition. They know that in this game, survival has to come before profit. If you burn through all your ammo on Tuesday, you can't fight on Wednesday.
And to achieve that level of preservation, they adopt what is known as the casino mindset. Think about how a casino operates. The house does not care, and certainly does not panic, if one individual player wins a massive hand of blackjack or hits a jackpot on roulette.
Right, the manager doesn't freak out.
The casino manager doesn't run out to the floor sweating and suddenly change the rules of the game. Why? Because they understand the law of large numbers. They know they have a slight mathematical edge, maybe just 2 or 3%.
Wow.
Over a series of 10,000 hands, that mathematical probability guarantees they will be immensely profitable. Professional traders think the exact same way. One single trade, whether it's a massive win or a painful loss, means absolutely nothing in isolation. Probability over time, a series of 100 executions, means everything.
But knowing that intellectually and doing it practically are two totally different things, how do we practically build that casino mindset? Let's unpack the 5 specific rules for transformation.
Okay, let's do it.
Rule number 1, reduce your lot size. In plain English, risk significantly less money per trade. But I have to push back here. If I reduce my risk to pennies, aren't my profits going to be pennies? Doesn't small risk defeat the whole purpose of trying to generate wealth?
That's the exact objection everyone has, but it ignores the psychological reality. The logic here is about finding your emotional threshold. Big financial risk equals big biological emotion.
Right.
If you risk half your net worth on one trade, your heart rate spikes, cortisol floods your brain, and clear analytical thinking goes completely out the window. You will inevitably make a panic-driven mistake.
You literally can't think straight.
Exactly. A small lot size keeps you under that emotional threshold. It allows you to remain detached, analytical, and capable of actually executing your strategy flawlessly. You have to earn the right to trade bigger by proving you can trade smaller without losing your mind.
That makes a lot of sense. You can't scale up chaos. Rule number 2 is incredibly blunt. Trade less. Because fewer trades naturally mean fewer opportunities to make emotional mistakes. Quality over quantity. But again, the pushback here is that people feel like if they aren't trading, they aren't making money.
And that's the addiction to action we talked about earlier. Trading less forces you to be hyper-selective. It forces you to wait for the absolute best mathematical setups. Think of it like a sniper versus a machine gunner.
Okay.
The sniper waits hours for one perfect, high-probability shot. The amateur sprays bullets everywhere, runs out of ammo, and hits nothing.
Which leads right into rule number 3, and I think this one is incredibly powerful. Journal your emotional mistakes.
Yeah.
Do not just open a spreadsheet and log the technical data of your trades, like where you entered, where you exited, what the price was.
Right, that's not enough.
You need to write down how you felt. Ask yourself, was my heart racing? Was I acting out of greed? Did I take this trade purely out of revenge because I was angry about the last one?
It creates a feedback loop of self-awareness.
I love the idea of an emotional journal. It's exactly like a professional athlete sitting down on a Monday morning to watch the game tape from Sunday. But instead of analyzing their footwork or their swing mechanics, they are sitting there analyzing their feelings of panic or their moments of arrogance. They are finding the fatal flaws in their mental game tape.
It's the only way to spot your own psychological patterns. And rule number 4 helps prevent those mental errors in the heat of the moment. Predefine your risk before you enter. You must make all your critical decisions, exactly where you will take your profit and exactly where your stop loss will cut your losses before your money is on the line. Once you click buy, you are in the trade, and absolutely no emotional on-the-fly decisions are allowed. The plan is locked.
You essentially have to protect yourself
From yourself, exactly. And finally, rule number 5, detach from the single trade. As we mentioned with the casino mindset, you have to train your brain to think in blocks of 100 trades, not in a single life or death outcome.
This raises an important question, though. If the mechanics of psychological mastery are this clear, trade, small, trade less, track your emotions, use a predefined plan, why do 90% of people still fail?
It all goes back to the dopamine loop.
Yeah.
Following these rules requires an immense amount of waiting, and waiting is psychologically agonizing for the modern human brain.
We hate waiting.
Everyone wants the financial reward, but very, very few people can handle the sheer boredom and the silence of doing absolutely nothing while they wait for the mathematical probability to perfectly align in their favor.
It's a true test of discipline over desire. So to wrap up our deep dive today, let's look back at the core lesson from all this data. The market does not pay the smartest analyst. You can be an absolute genius at reading charts.
Oh, yeah.
You can buy the most expensive, elite courses. You can perfectly copy institutional setups, and you can memorize the function of every technical indicator ever invented.
But until you sit down and do the hard work of mastering your own fear, your own greed, your fragile ego, and your relentless impatience, your brilliant strategy will simply die at the hands of your unchecked emotions.
Right.
Your charting software is not your biggest classroom. Your own mind is. defeat yourself, conquer your own biological impulses, and navigating the market actually becomes the easy part.
It's all about mastering the mirror. But before we go, let's take that concept of the mirror effect one step further.
Right. We've established today that the financial market is a perfectly objective, ruthless mirror that exposes our deepest emotional flaws and insecurities. But it makes you wonder, what other heavily structured systems in our modern everyday lives are functioning the exact same way?
Ooh, I like this.
Think about dating apps or social media algorithms or even the corporate career ladder.
Mm,
How often are we furiously blaming those external systems for our unhappiness, our frustration, or our failures, when in reality they are just objective mirrors,
mm.
quietly exposing our own internal psychological vulnerabilities?
That is a fascinating question to chew on. Are the tools actually broken, or is it just the person swinging the club? Take a hard look in your own mirrors this week, whatever they might be, before you make your next big move. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.